Okay, so we're graphing rational functions. And again, there's really two distinct parts of it. One is finding the information, and then the second part is using the information and graphing it. So at this point, we should be really solid with finding the information, knowing which part of the rational function gives us our vertical asymptotes, horizontal x-intercepts, and y-intercepts. So again, I always use that acronym TBB0, top, bottom, both 0 to find my information. Okay. The top gives us our y-intercepts. So my y-intercepts are at 0, 0, and negative 5, 0. Okay. Then the bottom gives me my vertical asymptotes. So my vertical asymptotes are at 6 and x equals negative 2. My horizontal asymptote, that's the both part, okay? Which means we look at the power of the top and the power of the bottom. So when we FOIL this out or distribute everything, we get 2x squared on top and just x squared on the bottom. And since our powers are the same, we just use our lead coefficients to find our horizontal asymptote. So it's 2 over 1. So our horizontal asymptote's at 2. And then to find our y-intercept, we plug in 0. But again, there's a shortcut for that. If we have our x-intercept is 0, 0, our y-intercept is automatically also 0, 0. Okay? So now let's put all of our information on this graph and then figure out what's going on here. So again, I use yellow for my verticals. So 6, I have a vertical asymptote at 6 and at negative 2. I use green for my horizontal, and my horizontal is at positive 2. My x-intercepts are at 0 and at negative 5. Okay? All right. So now, the process part is done. Okay? So we followed our process. We've got our information. We graphed what we've got. Now comes the thinking part. And this is the part that most of my students have an issue with. It's looking at what we've got and what we don't have and using that to make basically like a science, like a hypothesis. And then making sure that my supporting information supports my hypothesis. Okay? So let's look on the right side. Sorry, the left side first. We'll start here, less than negative 2 on this side. Okay? I have this x-intercept. Okay? 3 things that we have to look at. We need to look at our vertical asymptote, our horizontal asymptote, and our x-intercepts to determine. Now, there's 2 possibilities. The first possibility is that it comes down this way, right? We know it's got to cross our x-intercept like this, but then it follows its asymptotes and comes back this way. So that's our first possibility. Our second possibility is if it comes from the bottom and then crosses and goes like that. So looking at the 2 possible choices that I have, those are the only 2 possibilities. Which one is the right answer? Well, the first one coming from the top, when it crosses here, and I know it crosses because the power on my root is 1, so it definitely crosses. When it crosses down here, it has to come back up and cross the x-axis again. And since I don't have that second x-intercept, can my function do that? No. X-intercepts are like bridges. It can only cross or touch that line at those places. If not, the bridge is out. Okay? So we know for a fact it cannot be the top part. It has to be the second one, where it comes up here, it crosses up here, and then it follows our asymptotes. Okay? So we've got to think about what are the 2 possibilities. Every one of these pieces is going to have 2 possible solutions. We just have to look at all the information we have and decide which one's right. Same thing on the right side. 2 possibilities. It either, again, comes down like this and follows my asymptote out, or it comes up like this and crosses and follows my asymptote out. But what is not here on the right side? We don't have an x-intercept. So can it cross the x-axis? No. So it cannot be the bottom option. It has to be the top option. So that basically, it's almost like a process of elimination. We have two possibilities. Which one can we eliminate based on the information we have? Now the middle piece. Now the middle piece, we have an x-intercept. Again, this x-intercept has a power 1 on the root. So when we look over here at the equation, that power 1 on that root tells me that we're going to cross the x-axis. Okay? So does it cross this way or does it cross this way? Well, I don't know. So the only way I'm going to be able to find out is by using or finding another point on my graph. Okay? So it's either going to be crossing from the negative side to the positive side or the positive side to the negative side. So what we're going to do is we're going to find out where it is at x equals 1. Now, I could have used -1, but I don't want negatives flying around if I don't have to. So we use +1. And basically, we're looking at the signs of my function. So when I plug 1 into my first one, I get a positive and then a positive on top. Both factors are positive. On the bottom, when I plug it into the first one, I get a negative. When I put it in the second one, I get a positive. So basically, I'm dealing with a positive number divided by a negative number, which means at 1, it's on the negative side. So I know it's down here. Again, I could have plugged in 1 and found the actual value, but really all I care about at this point is if it's above the x-axis or below the x-axis. Now that I have 2 points, connect them. These two connect. They have to. And since this one crosses, it crosses up like this, and then this side goes like that. And again, my point supports it. If I had picked -1, if I had picked x equals -1 and done this point, I would have gotten a positive number. Could I have done both just to be sure? Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, the other thing you have to be careful of is on this right side, if we had picked a point, say like we weren't sure that it was up here, we couldn't verify that it was up here. If we had picked +8, okay, and got a positive number, that doesn't even really help me because it could have crossed earlier and been on the positive side, possibly, right? But since we know that there's no x-intercept, it can't cross. So we would have plugged in that point for nothing because basically we would have known ahead of time, well, if it can't cross the x-axis, it has to be above it, okay? So again, this is all about thinking through what you have, what you don't have. If you're not sure, plug in a point and see what happens, okay? And then figure it out after that, okay? All right, next one. Okay, same thing. We're going to attack it the same way. Find the information, graph my information, and then figure out what I've got and what I need. So again, we're following top, bottom, both 0. The top solutions, which are +4 and -7, those are my x-intercepts. The solutions on the bottom are my vertical asymptotes. -6, +1, +5. Then we look at both powers, top and the bottom. Well, top is power 2, the bottom is power 3. So the bottom's bigger, so we're automatically at 0. Y equals 0 is my horizontal. And then my y-intercept, we got to plug in 0. So when I plug in 0, I get -4 times 7 on top. On the bottom, I get 6 times -1 times -5. So we basically get -28 over 30, +30. So our y-intercept is 0, and if we reduce this, we'll get 14 over 15. So here we go. Let's graph everything we got. So we have 3 vertical asymptotes, which is telling me that I'm going to have to graph 4 pieces in this one. So -6, 1, +5, horizontal is at 0. My x-intercept, we got at 4, -7 over here, and then my y-intercept is right here between 0 and -1. And I'm not going to fight with you guys on exactly where -14/15 is. Just put it in the middle, okay? I'm not going to sit there and go, well, it's technically supposed to be a little closer to the -1 side. Nah, I'm not doing all that. All right, so there we go. We've got all of our information graphed. Now, since this one, the horizontal asymptote's at 0, I can't use, like on the last one, I can't use if it's got an x-intercept or not to help me figure out if it's above the horizontal asymptote or below it. Since I do have this x-intercept here, I know my 2 options on the left is it's either going to come down here, cross, and then come back up and follow, or it's going to come up from the bottom, cross, and come back down and follow. Okay? And again, I have these 2 possibilities. I don't know which one it is based on the information I have. So I need another piece of information. So this is those times I have to start plugging in a value to figure out which case it is. So I'm going to start by looking at x equals -10. Now, when I put in x equals -10 into my equation, the factors, to find out if they're positive or negative, on the top I get negative, negative. On the bottom I get negative, negative, negative. And then negative divided by negative is positive. So basically I have a positive divided by a negative, which is negative. So at -10, I'm on the negative side here. And again, connect the dots. So if I know I'm here, and I know this point here, and it has to cross, it crosses up like that. And on this side, it comes back that way. So that's how it looks. As soon as I have that second point, I know exactly what's happening there. Now on the right side, I don't have an x-intercept. So it's either all up on top of the horizontal or all below. So it's either it looks like this or it looks like that. And again, I have no other piece of information to let me know what's going on. So I have to plug in a point to find out. Okay? So again, I'm going to plug in +10 this time. And when I plug in +10, the top 2 factors are positive. The bottom 3 are positive. So everything's positive, so we're on the positive side. Which means this piece is up here, like that. Okay, now let's tackle these middle pieces. Let's tackle where my y-intercept is, because that's the easy part of the middle. Because I have a point. I don't have an x-intercept in between here, right? Since there's no x-intercept, can I cross the x-axis? No. So basically, either it does this, where it comes down and has to turn around because it can't cross and go back up, or it goes like this and then it can't cross and has to go back down. Those are my 2 options, because it can't cross the x-axis and it can't cross the verticals. Since I have this point there below already, it's telling me where it is automatically. It's definitely going to be the one on the bottom. So that y-intercept saved me from having to sit there and plug in any information. It's going to look something like this, because that y-intercept is already down there for me. So I don't have to plug in anything there. Just using the points that I started with. And then the last piece here, again, I have 2 possibilities. It crosses here. So it's either going to do this and cross like that, or it's going to do this and cross like that. And since I don't know which one it's going to do, again, I've got to plug in some and get some more information. Okay? So I got to pick, I can pick any number between 2 and 5, or sorry, 1 and 5, but I can't pick 4. So the easiest one is going to be 2. I can't pick 1 because 1 is on an asymptote. So I'm going to pick the next best number, which is 2. So when x equals 2, my first one is going to be negative on top, and the second one's positive. On the bottom, it's going to be positive, positive, and then negative. And a negative divided by a positive is positive. So everything's positive. So at 2, we're on the positive side. And again, now that I know that side's a positive, I connect my points. I know this crosses, so it's going to come down like that. And that side's going to go like that. So for each piece, I'm going to have 2 possible answers. And then I've got to use information that I have, or I've got to get another piece of information to figure out which of the 2 it is. Okay? This is the hardest part about graphing rational functions, is this part here, the figuring out which case it is.